Il senso religioso o l'esperienza religiosa è innanzitutto un fatto, un fenomeno obiettivo, un fatto reale. Non è un'idea. Innanzitutto non è un modo di sentire. Non solo si tratta di un fatto, di un avvenimento, ma del fatto più imponente e più inestirpabile della storia dell'uomo. Più imponente, più vasto, che neanche il fenomeno dell'amore dell'uomo e della donna, che neanche il fenomeno del rapporto tra genitori e figli. Perché il senso religioso è un avvenimento che pone, che afferma o che ricerca l'orizzonte entro il quale acquisti senso anche il rapporto tra l'uomo e la donna, anche il rapporto tra genitori e figli. Perciò è più vasto, perfino di quelli.
Quello che ti serve quando ti serve. Come il piano Easy Smart a canone zero, anziché a 3,90 € al mese. Easy Bank, semplicemente banca. Quello che ti serve quando ti serve. Nasce Easy Bank, la nuova banca digitale di Intesa San Paolo. Easy Bank, semplicemente banca.
Il senso religioso o l'esperienza religiosa è innanzitutto un fatto, un fenomeno obiettivo, un fatto reale. Non è un'idea. Innanzitutto non è un modo di sentire. Non solo si tratta di un fatto, di un avvenimento, ma del fatto più imponente e più inestirpabile della storia dell'uomo. Più imponente, più vasto, che neanche il fenomeno dell'amore dell'uomo e della donna, che neanche il fenomeno del rapporto tra genitori e figli. Perché il senso religioso è un avvenimento che pone, che afferma o che ricerca l'orizzonte entro il quale acquisti senso anche il rapporto tra l'uomo e la donna, anche il rapporto tra genitori e figli. Perciò è più vasto, perfino di quelli.
Quello che ti serve quando ti serve. Come il piano Easy Smart a canone zero, anziché a 3,90 € al mese. Easy Bank, semplicemente banca. Quello che ti serve quando ti serve. Nasce Easy Bank, la nuova banca digitale di Intesa San Paolo. Easy Bank, semplicemente banca.
La civiltà dell'amore, fratelli e sorelle, costruite senza stancarvi mai questa civiltà. Lavorate per questo, pregate per questo, soffrite per questo.
Un cordiale benvenuto a ognuno di voi e un benvenuto particolare a Sua Eccellenza Monsignor Giuseppe Baturi, arcivescovo di Cagliari e segretario generale della conferenza episcopale e quindi a maggior ragione per i tanti compiti che ha, lo ringraziamo.
We thank him for his willingness to share with us his reflections on the title of this meeting. The human existence is an inexhaustible friendship. Why did we choose this title? Each day we find an increase in existential solitude of many young people. We see an increase in conflict, a fragmentation of civil society. The war against Ukraine and in many other places in the world shows hate and violence that we're unheard of. And so each of us, even in his own life, daily life, comes every day across an urgency of relationships that are true, longer lasting, more able to face the problems of life, and above all, more attentive to the destiny of the other and one's own destiny. We want, therefore, to go to the roots of the relationship that's most noble, that of friendship. Where is it born from? What can generate it, regenerate it? What can make it strong, passionate, open? And why can we speak of a friendship that's inexhaustible? In a certain sense, we rediscover the origin of the meeting, which is renewed in every meeting. We've decided together to deepen three aspects that are fundamental of this title. We'll start with the first one, which has to do with the center, the verb to be, existence, to exist. In all cultures, we can find the desire for friendship, even if it's in forms or accents that are quite different, especially in the two great cultures of antiquity, that Greek one and the Roman one. How high is the esteem they give to friendship, we see in an affirmation from Aristotle. Nobody, in fact, he says, would choose to live without friends, even if he had all other goods. At the same time, he says, the desire for friendship is born quickly. Friendship, no. So it's a good that's highly desirable, but in no way immediate. A reason for which friendship is considered a virtue is, he says, it's perfect, on the other hand, is the friendship of the good and those who are similar according to virtue. For these, in fact, they equally desire mutual good as a good and are good for themselves. And Cicero, who together with Aristotle made the most important reflections on friendship to come from the ancient world, we find very similar affirmations. I realize this: there can be no friendship if not between virtuous people. But the title of this meeting, which is drawn from an intervention of Don Giuseppe, says something different. Friendship is not a relationship which is born above all, firstly, from our virtue, that rooted in our capacity, but it is offered to us like a datum of existence itself. How can we therefore say that our existence is a friendship? So let's start from my side with my gratitude for being here, for being invited to see so many people who are willing to listen to our dialogue. So we've chosen the form of a dialogue to bring ourselves closer to what should be the form through which we can comprehend a theme like this, that of a comparison with everything and sharing of experiences. St. Bernhard says that friendship belongs to experience. It's not a concept to explore that's simply with your resources and the evidences of reason, but is formed on experience, so much so that to discuss friendship without reading in ourselves the dynamic that's most profound of our experience. Because that's where we're not because of a series of encounters, friendships. I've encountered various friendly faces here, coming here. And so this already frees us from moralism, from the temptation to dictate forms and rules to the friendship, to beyond, outside the experience that we have. We need instead to have the humility to interrogate experience and know how to welcome it. Experience says to us that friendship is one of those experiences that touches the deepest chords of our life, which gives peace, joy, but the disappointment in friendship creates a big disturbance. We can also say that it's possible contradictions and even disappointment in friendships don't put in doubt its ideal. Indeed, on the other side, we might have accumulated various different disappointments and contrary things, but that doesn't take away from the ideal of friendship that convinces us. Experience says that there are some relationships, some people who come out of the horizon of the people that we know. All the people have tried to define, can't find it, without distinguishing it from other forms of affection and love. Friendship is a form of love. Maybe it's interesting for us to pick out certain characteristics that are typical, which let us to say, he's a friend, this one, this or she is a friend. This brings us out of ourselves, it attracts us, it brings out joy and sweetness and peace. It's going towards the friend, leaving our own solitude, is already an experience of satisfaction. Jesus calls us friends because he has shared with the apostles and therefore with us that which he hears from the Father. To a friend you can say secrets, you can bring up relationships of confidence, and so you can say, speaking of yourself without shame. And so the friend, then, with the friend, we mean a communion of intents, of affection, of wishing the same thing, not desiring the opposite thing, as said the ancients. But it's a communion that respects the differenceness, the alterity of the other. It doesn't confound communion with uniformity. It doesn't want to reduce the other to my idea, but it recognizes the otherness of it. He's not me, he's other than me, he has his own history, his own thought. We are friends, we tend towards communion, but not to unity that's a uniform. But the characteristic that's most important of friendship is that it's a form of love, of mutual benevolence, said the ancients. The correspondence, reciprocity. In the friend, love overcomes the search for your own interests, instead the interests of the other in a correspondent way. This is the great proposal of Don Giuseppe, who says that the secret soul of each relationship is friendship. Wanting, desiring the destiny of the other, accepting that for the other you are my destiny. So if the other recognizes that who acts does it for his destiny, that is friendship. Because friendship is a reciprocal going outwards, a correspondence. And this helps us understand why it's inexhaustible, where the content of love is then the aim of it's not limited. It can't be limited. If the reason for which we love each other is limited, it's not friendship. It's an interest, a gratification of correspondence, perhaps. Don Giuseppe goes on to say that the word friendship is close to the word I adore you, because truly we adore the other. We love them in God. And so friendship is this completed idea of correspondence, of going outwards. So I want to clarify some points before we go on. One, with a citation from Pavel Floreski, who said that this reciprocity helps to open wide my affection towards everything, to everyone. What generates friendship is charity, and charity makes it such that each person is my neighbor, but not friend. I need to love my enemies. Jesus has pardoned them, those who killed him. And Florsky says, to live among brothers, one must have a friend, even if they're far away. So in order to be able to treat everyone as themselves, one must see and feel himself at least in one. You need to, that this last one could perceive the victory that's already been attained, even above self-sufficiency and solitude. To love all, I need to have a point in which this love has become correspondence. I can feel myself loved, that way to desire to love even the other person, all of them, everyone, as my neighbor. But there's another aspect, and that is that without this attention to everyone, friendship tends to degenerate in a seeking for oneself, in egoism, selfishness, and closedness. To love all, I need to see my true face in someone. But if I don't love all, if I don't tend to generate a reality that's greater than the confines, the boundless confines of my relationship with one, my relationship with one degenerates into selfishness, egoism, in a narcissistic mirror. But why is inexhaustible the friendship that's like this, read like this by Don Giuseppe? Because the foundation of friendship, why is it fundamental, is life, in as much as it's given. I want to read, if God gives me life, if the Creator gives me being, to accept this is the substantial form of friendship, from which comes the capacity to establish all other bonds, ties, because from this point of view, all the other links are true if they are in a friendship. The most radical form of friendship is to accept each oneself and life as given by the mystery of God. If I accept my life as given by God, I can pardon myself, forgive myself. I can welcome myself. I can decide to welcome everyone. Instead, not welcoming yourself, refusing to recognize this, that we come from the creative hand of God, makes me rancorous and violent at the end. Love with which one loves themselves, said Don Giuseppe, is the form and root of friendship. Even St. Thomas, not Giuseppe. And said, friendship for the others in the sense that we behave with them as we do with ourselves. If we accept ourselves because given by God, we know how to offer this friendship to all. The possibility of pardon, of forgiveness, of help, possibility of supporting each other in which other people could benefit from. The true root of friendship is to accept oneself as given by the mystery of God, which is mercy. And why friendship? Because God calls us to be recognized and recalled. The first object of recognizing and welcoming as a sign of his love is my existence. Giuseppe says that as old people, you learn that living is already a good, and that existence is the supreme charity. Who doesn't recognize himself as, how can they not fail to be violent towards the others or full of rancor towards everything? I'm struck by how in deep down violence, this epidemics start poisoning in the points that are most origin of human existence, where we learn to be human, the family, relationships between man and woman, relationships between mother and child, between father and son, child. That what is called to be the cradle of friendship, in which we learn to love each other. It can become ever more places of violence because it's like there's a difficulty to accepting life as a good that's given by the misery of God, the first form of friendship. When we've spoken of this title, you underlined much this problem of the young people who do ever less experience of this being, that their life is given to them with all the consequences that we see. But we're exposed to a temptation here to think that the good of life corresponds to the realization of a project that may or may not come in the future, or by the consensus of the others. This is an extreme form of alienation, not recognizing that life is a good because it's given by a mystery, at least by mystery, and seeking the realization of oneself in the agreement of other people. It's like twisting in a certain way, like a realization or in the realization of one's own project. This is alienation because it's like saying the good of life is not now. It doesn't correspond with my being, my existence. It's yet to realize through forms, through projects, through interests that could even be utilizing others, exploiting others, and this is a problem that's very grave. But we don't resolve it by discussing, we resolve it in the experience of an encounter in which, like Floresky said, I can read myself as a good. And if from this gaze, this good gaze that helps me recognize my life as it is born a relationship of mutual benevolence, a relationship that has as its content the journey towards the good and the truth. That's friendship. It helps me to discover the friendship that is the secret content of every rapport, every relationship. A second aspect that we've shared is the fact that this experience of friendship passes through and on its own, is itself passed through the dramatic things of life, betrayals, falling, like the evangelicals, the Gospels say that the two great betrayals, those of Judas and then that of St. Peter, only that St. Peter, notwithstanding his betrayal, or maybe because of his betrayal of this experience that was so brought him to such a humility that he became the custodian of the friendship of all who follow Jesus. It's there the inexhaustibility shows itself in a way that's almost incomprehensible, humanly speaking. And so the friendship has its moments of falling, but it remains inexhaustible if it's faithful to this origin.
The possible contradictions which we can face, they can delusion us, they can hurt us, especially in our more dedicated relationships. We tend towards love, we tend to want to be together. We think about the story of Genesis. God was walking like a friend with Adam. But when man rejects God, violence is introduced, even in the relationship between man and woman. Lies and the troubles of violence. The real point is to be able to get back to the fount of friendship, to its source, and of the journey that the Church makes us continuously take. Our friendship as the final source of the mystery of God in and of itself is a love that runs both ways. Giuseppe said that the protagonist of creation is supreme friendship, is the Trinity, this mystery, which is reflected in the dynamic of our life, of our faith. We can't not love. We can't not search for love, to try and be loved, because this is how we're made. We are the reflection of God, the image of God, and this relationship between God the Father, the Son, and the Spirit. The great fathers of the Church, like Raimondo Lullo, who wrote a book about love called About Friendship, is obviously that human friendships are a reflection of the supreme friendship that is God. The inexhaustible friendship is inexhaustible because its source is inexhaustible, which is the mystery of being and mercy. We would never have known this, clearly speaking, or with certainty, if this mystery hadn't become man, if it hadn't become our friend, our brother, if God hadn't revealed his face in Jesus of Nazareth. I'd like to read this homily of John Paul II from a Christmas a long time ago in 1971. God came among us to be known. And in order to be known, he became our friend. He became one of us. He dressed as one of us. He became a man. He became to be our friend, our brother, our colleague, to give us confidence. This friendship makes it clear that we are loved. Loved beyond our sin, beyond our betrayals. Certainly to fail in this final horizon, which is friendship, and God's mysterious mercy is capable not only to forgive each other, but to forgive ourselves, to reconcile ourselves with our own history, with our own story, which is always slightly different to how we'd want it to be. So God in Christ talks to us as if we were friends. He allows us into communion with himself. It's inexhaustible because it's God's face, it's Christ's face, which, in order specifically to forgive us, he went up the cross. And the story of Peter's quite incredible because, as Benedict XVI told us in an audience with him, by the side of the lake, twice Peter is asked, "Do you love me?" Using the Greek verb agapao, Jesus asks him if he's ready to sacrifice, and instead the first two times Peter replies with a different verb that simply means that yes, I love you, but it's not as strong. It doesn't correspond fully to the question Christ asks him. Surprisingly, the third time Christ asks him, it's Jesus who changes the verb. He says, Peter, do you like me? And Peter replies, yes. And it's like Pope Benedict replied, it's more that Jesus adapted himself to Peter and not the other way around. But this is the incarnation. It's God who adapts himself to our own capacity to love him and takes all he can of us and uses us in our entirety. And it's this divine adjustment that gives hope to his disciple, he who knew the suffering of betrayal. And from here comes the trust that makes him capable of following everything to the end, to death. Giving that confidence, he'll be able to give his own life. And so the real problem is that our fellow humans meet people who love like this, who are treated like this. That's what's necessary. That's what people need, to be embraced with the same mercy that God gives. That same mercy, as Giuseppe says, that until the last life, until the last word, until betrayal, that no matter all the bad events that happen to us, we are called to be an embrace of mercy for all people. In this meeting, we have the possibility to together remind ourselves of people who've lived this kind of inexhaustible friendship, as you've described it. For example, Dorothy Day, Blessed Hernandez from Venezuela, Takashi Nagai from Japan, Father Puglisi and Father Milani, Don Giussani himself. These are people who have become, through the friendship we've kind of that we've lived, a new source of friendship. We have many interviews or witnesses of people who, these very days, in the moment, live these experiences, like the nuns and monks of Azer, who are here with us, who have an amazing project on display here, and of what they've lived in Syria, despite all the destruction, and how their presence is a source of hope for many people. So this friendship that extends itself, that involves ever more people around itself. What's the horizon of this inexhaustible friendship? The Pope speaks of social friendship, a surprising expression which was already used by John Paul II. Social friendship as an attempt to bring different social groups together to create unity and common good that's capable of including even the most poor, those who are the most needy, that it's created by a logic of integration, of hospitality, and not of exclusivity and exclusion. As such, social friendship tends not only to recognize the divinity of the other as someone that can be spoken to, someone and more than as just a social construct. Our starting point, that as Floreschi said, that man doesn't stand in front of society as an atom, as an individual. Floreschi said that the smallest part of society isn't an atom, it's a community molecule, and the man finds himself within this, and he's bound by ties of love, his family, his mother, his father. Ultimately, even myself, I have a mother and a father, I have brothers, I have a family ties, and then there's my friends and so on. Society already welcomes us and binds us into these ties of friendship. The problem is developing this friendship as a productive force, and its capacity to generate and to create a people. And this is the real challenge, and it's a truly amazing challenge. The Pope said that we need the desire to be a people, the gratuitous desire to be a people, the simple desire to be one people. Well, what does a people do? What does that mean? What constitutes a people? A people is made of a group of people, of individuals with a certain culture, with a certain identity, and that's what we often define as a people. So during the months of lockdown, it happened to me I ran into a certain phrase of St. Augustine, which says that what makes a group of people, a group of individuals, a people, isn't a set of laws, nor the converging of interests, which could also be lacking, the merging of interests, but rather it's the experience of an association in communion of all things and of the things that they love. That's what makes a people. An agreement of a certain set of things that they all love. So much so that he says that the quality of that tie that binds people together depends on the quality of what they love in common. So how is it possible for a people to love life? They take care of each other, they help the poor. Why do they do this if there's not for a kind of desire to spread the friendship that ties them together, that ties together family members, members of a society, friends, those who feel identify as members of the church, of a parish, or of a structure of service to others? Don Giuseppe said, friendship is always able to generate and to create a people, because through love, something human is always born, and that is an objective good for humanity. And this can help create a people. So I think that the real topic at hand is this, of having to renew our identity, rebuild the identity of our people. That's not really possible without a reviewing of all the things that we love together, and which ultimately allows us to call ourselves men, brothers, especially those who are the most needy. For us Christians, those baptized people, even if they come from another side of the world, from the other side of the ocean, they are our friends, all men. And this is what the Pope is talking about. Social reality expresses the soul of a people, that's able to love is as much as if it was a real, true friendship. So that's to say, our friendships have a responsibility to generate a people, to look after everyone, to take care of each other. As I saw in Syria, I was visiting a Christian community there not long ago, and the works done by AVSI or the Franciscans helps this, ties of friendship that then become a home for everyone who needs it, especially for the most marginalized and the poor. As a sense of a logic of creation, it builds a people, a community, and that generates a good for everyone. Politically, this also means that we need to make every effort for the Italian people, for it to be born in a set of experiences and to live a set of friendships, parishes, associations, friendships, groups of people who set up schools, fraternities, who help run soup kitchens or help the sick and the poor. John Paul II spoke about a kind of creative subjectivity of the citizen. Social friendship can also mean the prioritizing the creative aspect of society and of friendships that tie people to each other and that allows them to take up a responsibility to create good, to create some spaces of welcoming, to think and to create a society in which people are loved and respected and held as people worthy of their own dignity. And this, to me, sounds like a good idea that the Pope is inviting to us on.
In questa reciprocità c'è anche
In this reciprocity, there's also an aspect of provocation of the other, because if I am in a relationship with others, then I'll get to know myself more, It may be in ways that I didn't expect. Like in the relationship with others, I discover in them some good things, some talents, which they may not even have been aware of. And so this rapport is one, this relationship is one that can bring us both to our own truth, to the truth of our life. The content, the true content is inexhaustible because it's the search of truth, and truth will never finish to grasp it all. We're always on the threshold of this, and for this, we're always beggars. It's a friendship, doesn't live from possession, the possession of the other, or the possession of an image of the reality, of reality reduced to one's image, but continuously in the seeking of truth and the will that the other, the desire that the other, the loved one, could journey towards his own destiny, even at the cost of some sacrifice from me that could even be asked of us to my interests. And once again, it's inexhaustible because it can't be bounded. Without this perspective of destiny, at the end, each one of us doesn't have friendship. It's connivance. It's seeking a correspondence, like we seek one look in the mirror after we put on our makeup, if you like. It becomes reflected an image that's already altered in some way. Yeah, and the friend is a different thing to that. And this is a beautiful adventure, but I repeat, we don't need to dictate to friendship a bunch of rules. We need to have the simplicity to listen to our experience and take seriously our need. And this can happen truly for everybody, every person. We're speaking of the spiritual testimony of Father Christian, of the Trappists, one of the Trappists of Tiberine, who was killed with his brethren in '96, after the first warning that he wrote down his testimony. Already thinking of death, he says, if God wills, my gaze could emerge into that of the Father, to contemplate his sons in Islam the way he looks at them. See, friendship is this attempt to look at the others from that other point of view, all illuminated by the glory of Christ, the fruit of his passion, invested by the gift of the Holy Spirit, through which the secret joy will always be to set up communion, playing with differences. For this life that's lost, I give thanks to God that seems everything for this joy. In this grace, in which all is said already of my life, I include certainly you, my friends of yesterday, and you, friends, who there with my father and my mother and my sisters and my brothers, and then in the hundredfold has been given as promised, and you to the friend of the last minute, who I'd never have known what I did. Also for you, I want this grace, this to God, this goodbye, this contemplation. As it's been given to find ourselves, if we have the chance to find ourselves in paradise, if God, our Father, if it pleases Him, the Father of all. And so this is comprehensive, if one can say this grace, the thanks of one who recognizes a love that's greater, which welcomes Him, who welcomes everyone, and that I can welcome in myself. Without this gratitude, we can't have gratuitousness, and therefore there can't be friendship. This testimony certainly is one of the witnesses that's most beautiful of friendship. It's dramatic and beautiful of the friendship which we were speaking of, which is also a friendship that gives this life for others. Yeah. I want to go back to one aspect that emerged in different moments in this encounter, which is the family. In what sense can you say that the family is even a place of friendship in the sense we were speaking of? Oh, no, in the stricter sense of the term, St. Thomas distinguishes 3 or 4 possibilities of friendship, and based on what is shared between them, because friendship is sharing. And he enumerates even a political friendship, in the way in which they consort those in the same society that can share in the building of the common good. But the first is that of the family. And not by chance, between man and woman, it's full of gratuitousness, of correspondence. And St. Thomas calls this conjugal friendship. This respect for the other becomes care, becomes desire to care for, to take on the burden of the destiny of the other. And this conjugal friendship is the true womb in which are born, therefore, children. So much so that St. Thomas spoke of the relationship between husband and wife as a kind of spiritual uterus in which the children can grow up. So all this that we can say finds there a fundamental paradigm, but also the conjugal friendship must be saved from the perception of this, by this perception of this mystery, that the mystery of God, the mystery of the Trinity that we recognize in the face of Christ. And the political friendship is that which links the cives, the citizens, the neighbors, not necessarily those who are identical to me, but others, and it lives from the sharing of the destiny of the city, sharing that destiny. And so the political friendship is that which links those who have the same preoccupation for the destiny of our society. The meeting was born for the friendship between peoples, and in all its 44 years, there have been many encounters between peoples and cultures that are different from each other. But this diversity often lived as a contradiction to the truth that has been met, like an obstacle to live that which is closest to my heart. How can we overcome this limit of thinking that the truth separates me from the other, and it makes it difficult for me to encounter them because I'm already in a certain way sorted out.
So this is violence in which the I and the you are opposed. A great saint, Saint John Chrysostom, said that these cold words, me and you, that introduce infinite wars into the world, this difference between me and you. And war is born when there's an opposition is made between what's mine and what's yours, my interests and yours, through which I don't recognize dignity to who benefits my interests or my own vision of my interests. Friendship is something completely different. It's a desire for truth and to help for the good of the other in front of you. And it's a bit like a test, so you have to make sure that this is infinite. I'll never stop reaping the rewards or the splendor of this friendship. And on the other hand, you have to be able to value every small fragment of good that you find in others. And so it's always a question of proximity, of friendship, because the truth and what I truly desire is a truth of a you with a kind of capital T that refers to both myself and to another, which shines in me and in a certain way shines through someone else as well. And that's why I think that the meeting has a great future, because in a situation of war, like the one that we find ourselves in, we have the possibility to find a place in which we can experiment and find a friendship which doesn't alter, which embraces all our diversity as a common practice of peace. And we really do, the world, and both we and the world really need this, the ability to create peace. And the final paradigm, the final example is on the cross. Christ is our peace, because the love that burns in his body, he breaks down the walls of enmity. Let's not forget that Christ, in his body, he tore down the wall of separation, the wall of enmity. And that's why friendship is the gift of inexhaustible love that I owe to my fellow humans. And so the encounters, the dialogue, even with very different cultures, isn't something that can be added with difficulty to the Christian experience. Rather, it's integral to it. So what I look for, it goes above and beyond what I already know and what I think I've understood. Friendship is only possible when you're like a beggar in front of the mystery. What's more important, what's most dear to us, is greatest. It's always greater, and it's always something we can discover. And I need the help of everyone's eyes, of everyone's perspective, of everyone's help. I need everybody's testimony on this to try and dig deeper into what's in my heart. And everyone become important in this. Each one, not everyone is in equal measure and with different means. But if it's not like this, if this doesn't happen, then there's something that's gone wrong. It's like eliminating the mystery out of existence and out of life. So all that remains is contradictions, is opposition. Don Giuseppe always used to say that war is born from idolatry, because idolatry renders absolute one small part of our experience, and it opposes itself to the absoluteness of another experience. Rather, what saves us from this kind of idolatry that generates war, which is the idolatry of race, of your own interests, or of your own desire for power. The only thing that stops this is the religious sense, as a search for a common good. And the Pope in Abu Dhabi wrote a beautiful manifesto on human fraternity and human brotherhood, along with the Imam he wrote. And together they wrote this, that the important thing for peace is to feed the religious sense among young people, because only the religious sense, that is, the begging for truth, for mystery, to a God who is all and who as such embraces everyone. This is the true antidote against extremism, violence, against power. These are all forms of idolatry. And they will never truly they'll never truly dominate us for as long as this is true. It's hard to understand how friendship, which exists in society and which we experience, isn't absence, or that expresses a desire to find it, to live it. And we need to let it, it's often rejected, it's not allowed to enter people's lives. How is it possible that something as attractive as friendship, as beauty, can be rejected or manipulated? So I'd say two things. First of all, because we need to be able to find a friend, first of all, who fascinates us, who attracts us, and whose fascination defeats our own limits. Because a discussion on friendship doesn't help me, but having a friend with me, someone like Jesus who weeps over the fallen child, over his dead friend Lazarus, a man like this, a man whose love is able to penetrate my solitude and open myself to others, because this is the true problem, the true difficulty. Rejecting friendship binds me within my own solitude and makes me remain the center of attention. You put yourself first. However, a friendship makes you open yourself, leave this space, leave your bubble. We need to live for this kind of beauty, and we need to ask to live and to be able to offer this friendship, this beauty, to our brothers and to our fellow humans. And so it's a kind of attraction of the relationships we have in the simplicity of living together, in the simplicity of a brotherhood, which brings together all that is life: work, study, the issues at home, all worries about your children. Just despite this encounter through which beauty induces me to open myself, it forces me to open myself and to become more available, and make me act in a way that it's not, let's say, natural, but not spontaneous. We need to let ourselves be loved. We have a great difficulty in letting ourselves be loved and in letting ourselves be forgiven. Why is that?
Because I swear that only the first three questions were agreed between us. The difficulty of Peter, who doesn't want to let Christ wash his feet by that master, who instead he followed, but who now is bending himself down over him and over his need. The difficulty is that the temptation, the ultimate temptation, the ultimate sin, which is self-sufficiency, it's the eliminating the other and thinking to being able to save oneself by yourself. The mysteries in the mystery of the freedom of man, who even in front of God can say no, but we don't say no, or rarely we say it, because very few have had apparitions, supernatural apparitions, I think so. We say to those who love us instead, those who truly love us, who want to wash our feet, who ask for an openness, a confidence, a trust that often is negated, is denied for fear of losing ourselves, because in friendship you need to lose yourself a little bit to find yourself. And so to accept, to let yourself be loved. One time I met a girl who said that she had difficulty to choose. She could never manage to choose because she was afraid to get it wrong. Why are you afraid to make mistakes? I said, because I don't want to be forgiven, she said. Because letting yourself be forgiven means accepting to depend on another. Instead, it's a good dependency, and it makes your life more sweet. And so that's really the truth of life, is to accept to be loved. I think that in this last observation, something's really emerged in profundity, that many things that we've said in this encounter. And so I'll leave this image there, and which he'll give to all of us, which he gave to all of us, that of living friendship as begging. That seems to me also a suggestion to really take to our hearts. Thank you very much, Your Excellency.
Ringrazio Sua
I thank His Excellency. I thank all those of you. I think that his words and even his testimony can be a great chance to live this meeting, a great enrichment in all the richness that you see, which is born by many friendships, because the meeting is always born from many friendships. Thank you all, and good meeting.
La civiltà dell'amore, fratelli e sorelle, costruite senza stancarvi mai questa civiltà. Lavorate per questo, pregate per questo, soffrite per questo.
Il senso religioso o l'esperienza religiosa è innanzitutto un fatto, un fenomeno obiettivo, un fatto reale. Non è un'idea. Innanzitutto non è un modo di sentire. Non solo si tratta di un fatto, di un avvenimento, ma del fatto più imponente e più inestirpabile della storia dell'uomo. Più imponente, più vasto, che neanche il fenomeno dell'amore dell'uomo e della donna, che neanche il fenomeno del rapporto tra genitori e figli. Perché il senso religioso è un avvenimento che pone, che afferma o che ricerca l'orizzonte entro il quale acquisti senso anche il rapporto tra l'uomo e la donna, anche il rapporto tra genitori e figli. Perciò è più vasto, perfino di quelli.
Quello che ti serve quando ti serve. Come il piano Easy Smart a canone zero anziché a 3,90 € al mese. Easy Bank, semplicemente banca. Quello che ti serve quando ti serve. Nasce Easy Bank, la nuova banca digitale di Intesa San Paolo. Easy Bank, semplicemente banca.